Imagine waking up one day and discovering that $5 trillion simply vanished from the face of the earth. It wasn't war, it wasn't a natural disaster, it wasn't a zombie apocalypse. It was something far more absurd. An entire generation of investors who believed that just putting .com in front of any word was enough to create a company worth billions. This is the story of the internet bubble and how the world almost lost faith in the digital future before it even truly began. And spoiler, you still feel the effects of that madness today. To understand how $5 trillion could simply disappear, we need to go back to a morning in August 1995, in Mountain View, California. There, in a Netscape meeting room, a few guys in t-shirts and sneakers were about to change the world without knowing it. Netscape was a company that made internet browsers. You know that thing you use to access websites? Yeah, they invented a commercial version of it. The problem? The company didn't make money. Zero. Nothing. In fact, it was losing money every single month. But on the 9th of August, 1995, something magical happened. Netscape shares were put up for sale at $28 each. By the end of the first day, they were worth more than $58. In a single day, a company that had never earned a penny was suddenly valued at $2.5 billion. From New York to San Francisco, a new religion was being born. And the god of this religion had 3 letters, com.com. All you had to do was put that extension at the end of your company's name and, magically, investors showed up with suitcases full of money. The Federal Reserve, the American central bank, had lowered interest rates. The government had reduced investment taxes from 28% to 20%. It was like someone had turned on the money taps and forgotten to shut them off. In New York, inside the mirrored towers of Wall Street, investment funds competed to see who could throw more money at companies that had just one thing, a website. It didn't matter if the company sold anything, had employees, or even had an office. If it had .com in the name, it got funding. In 1999, 39% of all venture capital in the country was being poured into internet companies. To put it into perspective, that meant 4 out of every $10 invested in new businesses went to companies that existed only in the virtual world. In Palo Alto, at the heart of Silicon Valley, something straight out of a science fiction movie was happening. Companies that had never sold anything were being valued at 48 times their revenue. For comparison, a normal company is valued at 5 to 10 times its revenue. Offices turned into adult playgrounds, free sushi, beer in the fridge, pool tables, video games. Programmers were given stock options instead of salaries. The logic was simple. Why care about money today if your shares will be worth millions tomorrow? Startup launch parties became epic events. Imagine a party where they gave away a Porsche as a gift. Not an exaggeration, it really happened. Oliver Muoto, one of the founders of Epicentric, said the parties got so over the top that they started attracting people who just wanted free food and drinks. It was as if reality had been temporarily suspended. No one talked about profit, sustainability, or viability anymore. The new metrics were page views, clicks, impressions, numbers that didn't pay the bills, but impressed investors. And in the middle of all that madness, one question began to echo through the halls. Can this last forever? To understand the total absurdity of the situation, let me tell you the story of a company called Pets.com. Yes, an online pet, food, and toy store. Founded in San Francisco, the company had an adorable mascot, a little brown dog that appeared in TV commercials. The concept seemed brilliant. Who wouldn't want to buy pet food from the comfort of home? The problem was in the numbers. For every dollar the company made selling products, it spent $4 on advertising and delivery. In 1999, Pets.com made $619,000 in revenue, but it spent $11.8 million on advertising. The University of Kentucky calculated that the company was spending about $400 to acquire each new customer. It was like burning money just to keep your hands warm. Even so, in February 2000, the company went public on the stock exchange. Investors bought its shares, believing that, in the future, it would dominate the online pet market. 8 months later, Pets.com shut its doors for good. But Pets.com wasn't alone on this journey into absurdity. Before we start this part, please subscribe to the channel and click the like button. It motivates me to keep making videos in this format. Turn on the notification bell so you'll be alerted about the next video as soon as I post it. Back in the Bay Area, specifically in Sunnyvale, a company called VA Linux was about to break every record of insanity. The company sold Linux software to businesses. So far, nothing unusual. On the day of its stock market debut, VA Linux shares skyrocketed 698% in a single day. 700%. That means if you had invested $1,000 in the morning, you'd have nearly $7,000 by the afternoon. Employees became millionaires overnight. Janitors received stock options worth more than entire houses. It was like money was raining from the sky, and everyone was holding buckets to catch as much as they could. But there was a problem no one wanted to see. The rain was about to stop. Tokyo, Japan, March 2000. While Americans were celebrating their digital fortunes, across the Pacific, the Japanese economy was slipping into recession. And when Japan sneezes, the world catches a cold. The following Monday after Japan's recession announcement, U.S. markets opened in free fall. The Nasdaq, packed with tech companies, plunged. In 1 week, trillions of dollars evaporated. But the final blow came from an unexpected source. A magazine, Barron's, a respected Wall Street publication, splashed across its cover the headline, "Burning Up." The article showed, with cold numbers and a calculator in hand, that most dot-com companies were literally burning money. It was as if someone had shouted, "The emperor has no clothes," in front of the crowd. Suddenly, everyone realized they were at a party where no one had paid the bill. Washington, D.C., headquarters of the Federal Reserve. Alan Greenspan, the most powerful man in the U.S. economy, decided the party had gone on long enough. To contain inflation and cool the overheated economy, he did something that terrified Wall Street. He raised interest rates. In 10 months, interest rates rose 6 times, reaching 6.5%. That may not sound like much, but it was like cutting oxygen to a fire. Suddenly, borrowing money became expensive. Investing in companies with no profit stopped making sense. The easy money that had fueled the bubble for 5 years simply dried up. And when that happens, gravity kicks back in. But it wasn't just internet companies losing their minds. Across the Atlantic, in Europe, another craze was underway, the 3G fever. London, March 2000. The British government decided to auction licenses for mobile carriers to offer high-speed internet on cell phones. 5 licenses were put up for sale, and the expectation was to raise a few billion. What happened was pure insanity. For 6 weeks, companies engaged in a bidding war that pushed the auction up to £22.5 billion. To give you an idea, that was 2% of the entire UK GDP that year. The fever spread to Germany. Deutsche Telekom, Vodafone, all the European giants raced to see who would pay the most for radio frequencies. A Deutsche Telekom executive called the situation economic insanity. Still, they kept paying. The result? Telecom companies drowned in debt to pay for something that barely even existed yet. 2001. New York, San Francisco, London, Tokyo. All around the globe, the same scene repeated. People staring at computer screens in total shock. The Nasdaq lost 40% of its value in 2000 alone. By 2002, the total drop was 75%. $5 trillion, a number so massive, it's hard to comprehend, simply evaporated. To put that into perspective, $5 trillion is more than Japan's GDP. It's like the world's third largest economy was deleted with a click. In Silicon Valley, 200,000 people lost their jobs between 2001 and 2004. Pink slip parties emerged in San Francisco gatherings where laid-off workers brought their termination letters to network and look for jobs. The Golden Age's symbol became a symbol of despair. Over 100 million Americans saw their retirement plans vanish. 70% of pension funds lost at least 1/5 of their value. People who had planned to retire had to go back to work. Dreams were canceled, homes were lost. Was this the end of the internet? But here's the twist no one saw coming. Remember, all that money wasted on fiber optics and internet infrastructure? It wasn't wasted. During the bubble madness, companies laid down 80.2 million miles of fiber optic cables across the United States. That represented 76% of the country's entire digital network. When the dust settled, all that infrastructure was still there. What happened was one of the greatest ironies in economic history. The bubble's waste built the foundation for the real internet revolution. Netflix, YouTube, Facebook, Google, none of that would be possible without the infrastructure built during the crazy years. It was as if, in the rush to reach the future, everyone had unknowingly built the roads leading to it. And so we return to our opening question. How can $5 trillion simply evaporate? The answer is more complex than it seems. That money didn't vanish in the literal sense. It was transferred, from rookie investors to seasoned ones, from fragile companies to solid ones, from dreamers to pragmatists. But it was also transformed into fiber optic cables, into knowledge, into experience, into humility. The internet bubble was simultaneously the greatest destruction and the greatest creation of value in modern history. Today, when you watch a video on YouTube, post a picture on Instagram, or buy something online, you're using the infrastructure paid for with the money lost in the bubble. Those $5 trillion didn't evaporate, they transformed into the connected world we know today. The lesson? Sometimes, to build the future, you first have to break the present. And sometimes, the line between genius and madness is thinner than we imagine. Next time someone tells you that a new technology will change the world, remember, they might be right, but maybe not in the way they expect, and definitely not on the timeline they imagine. The world didn't end when the bubble burst, it only truly began.